Hi, everybody. This is Brass Check, and we are talking with somebody that I am very pleased to be talking with today. You know her work, I'm sure, Moms for Liberties, Robin Steeman. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So some people know what Moms for Liberty is. Some people don't. We're going to talk in specific about the work Moms for Liberty does. But first, I want you to lay out the table of why we even need Moms for Liberty. What is going on in our schools in particular and in other areas of our society that requires the existence and the activity of this organization? Why is it so crucial?
Well, I can easily answer that question from the local county level as a parent. My journey started, so Moms for Liberty is a national organization with chapters that can be started in any county or any school district. And for my part, I started the Williamson County chapter when our school board had hired a diversity, equity, inclusion consultancy. And I, in 2021, was very well versed in what that would mean, if you brought that kind of a policy in. And I was very well aware that that's been instituted in many corporations and institutions, but children are defenseless. So I had a real problem with instituting this in our schools. So that's when I decided to speak up. And I addressed the school board about it. They did not seem to care or not understand. And so I said, okay, well, I'm one voice. I know there's people out here in Williamson County that agree with me. I'm going to hold a meeting and start a chapter. And that way I didn't have to invent a wheel and create, a new grassroots organization out of thin air. Moms for Liberty had the wheel. I took it and rolled with it. And so, then you immediately have your logo, your name recognition.
Right.
People immediately know what you're about, even though we were one of the first chapters. So people were learning. But, if a new chapter started today, then people know exactly what you're about. And then you're instantly plugged into a network that's national, 43 states, and, I believe over 200,000 members, with a pool of resources and support and knowing that you're not alone. So that's how it started in Williamson County. And I think that's the value of it, because parents and parental rights are under assault in this country. They have been for a very long time. But COVID was the flashpoint that showed us how bad it really was. And
Mhm.
parents have got to unite to advocate and defend their children. So Moms for Liberty is a vehicle for that. Um, in Williamson County, we say that we equip, inform, and empower the parents to advocate for their children. And that's also the national motto too. The national takes it to all levels of government, which we do. We engage at the state level, but really information and knowledge is power. And over the last year, we as a chapter undertook the school year for parents, because when you start listing out all the ideologies that their kids face in one day of school, the parents just get this far off look because there's all these acronyms and crazy things and nice sounding words, obviously,
Mhm.
like diversity, equity, inclusion, that actually are just a Pandora's box for, terrible things that your children would have to face. If you list them all out at once, the parents get just a very far off look and they're ready to give up right
Mhm.
then.
Mhm.
So what we do is information, inform them, equip them, network them, provide tools, provide opt-out kits, provide curriculum deep dives. I had a parent contact me yesterday and she said, "This is on my child's reading list. What do I do? What, these titles are dark." And I said, "That looks like the Savas curriculum." And she said, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Well, been doing this for a while." And then I sent her our parent toolkit for the Savas curriculum. And,
Wow.
that's how we can help, because now she's informed and equipped and she can go advocate for her kid, in the school.
This is
So
great.
that's
So,
one way.
so, so it all, so it all boils down to uh, informing parents because they may not know. Parents are
Mhm.
busy. They can't monitor every single thing that's going on in school. So they get informed. They get to see what's behind, and we're going to talk about some of this in a bit, what's behind some of these details, some of these programs, where are they coming from? And then the most important thing is you give them specific tools for how to address the situation. Wonderful system, wonderful system. And I imagine all the different chapters communicate with each other. As one chapter learns something, that information disseminates throughout the entire network. And so as the network gets stronger, all the people that are connected to the network, all the families get stronger as well.
Yes, yes. And there's like, even in Pennsylvania, I believe there's 29 chapters there.
Mm.
That is quite a fabric. And Florida leads the way. I can't even remember how many chapters they have. In Tennessee, we have 7 chapters, and we're networked because we help each other to deal with the specific issues in Tennessee. Every state's a little bit different
Mm-hmm.
with its own unique challenges. So, information is power. And when a new chapter comes online, there's corporate knowledge that I perhaps have because I've been around for a while that I can share with them. And then there's, that jumps them forward on the learning curve.
Great, great. Because we cannot wait for things to change at the national level or the state level. And the place to fight these battles is at the school board level. And I'm using that term metaphorically, everybody. When I say battle, you can have a verbal battle, you can have a political battle. Because if we wait for the federal government to reform itself, we'll all be communist Chinese subjects. That's my opinion, is the direction we're going. So it needs to be fought today at the local level. And as you pointed out, what happens when parents, articulate, rational, well-spoken parents, show up at these school board meetings? How are they often responded to by the school boards? We've run many videos on that, by the way, but tell us in your own words.
In Williamson County, ignored and sometimes mocked. We have our school board member here in particular that loves to personally go after me.
Wow.
But I don't seem like an irrational, emotional person. I bring valid points, but there's an ideology there that they don't think my points are valid. But my points do represent the majority of Williamson County constituents.
And also they represent the continuity of tradition of how our country has been operated, imperfectly, like all countries. We're not perfect. But we did a pretty good job of raising children and launching them into the world. We're doing a pretty bad job of it now. When you look at the number of kids who are on various pharmaceutical drugs prescribed by doctors to maintain their mood, we saw the peak in suicide rates during COVID, which was one of the greatest national disgraces in American history, especially since it's not been addressed. So we're not doing a good job. And what's changed? Well, the schools have changed. Do you have any sense of how these lunatic school board people got into position with their heads stuffed with ideology, and just the mechanics, the logistics of how it happened?
Well, when you try to find conservatives and rational people to run for school board, they take a different stance. They look at like, well, how will this affect my family? How will this take away from my family? Will my family be brought under scrutiny? How will this affect my personal life? Surely somebody else is better for this job, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for a leftist, their ideology is number one, always. And they are running to implement their ideology in every potential office they can get their hands on. And that's been that way for decades. Conservatives have largely been asleep at the wheels and just handing over all the local positions to ideologues who prescribe to, on the radical left. And that's how we're in this conundrum. And that's why it will take, 4, 6, 8 years to try and turn this around. But finding good conservative people to run, I know by personal experience, is very difficult, because by and large, conservatives and the right, number one is our family. We work to support, and enrich our kids. By and large, the leftists that I encounter, their number one is their ideology and pushing it forward. And when you dive into, Marxism, it really is a theology. In a book by Paulo Freire, who largely guides and governs, this book is the most referenced book for American pedagogy, which is teaching. He talks about having a Marxist Easter. Well, you die to your old self and you are resurrected as a Marxist activist. Now go forth and, indoctrinate America's youth.
Wow.
So it's number one in their lives. And that is also how you see, parents, these hard left parents that will sacrifice their kids on an altar of their ideology. It's Munchausen's by proxy.
Yes, yes.
Like even if the kid, doesn't show signs of confusion, they're going to be like, no, you're a girl. No, you're a boy. And you see these just heartbreaking videos, and all a kid wants is to be loved. They'll do anything for it, if that means being the opposite sex. So,
Can you,
and
there's,
that's why I think we have such a problem finding good people to run.
yeah, I mean, people think that you can throw out religion. And the problem is you can do it, but you're going to have some religion. Everybody's got a religion, whether they realize it or not. Their religion may be hedonism, it may be Marxism, but you're going to have some overriding organizing principle in your life. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I have seen it too. I have seen people whose ideologies are so sacred to them, they will sacrifice their own children, which is a kind of a ghastly thought, but it's what's going on. You mentioned a technical term, which is really useful for people to know, Munchausen by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
That is a medical condition. It's a psychiatric condition, and it's a real condition. And I think it would be, if you I know you're not a doctor, but we can still talk about medicine, even if we're not doctors, just as we can talk about politics if we're not politicians. What's your understanding of what that term means and how it manifests in certain parents who are afflicted with it?
Well, again, I'm not an expert, but Munchausen's syndrome is, what I understand is the attention seeking, the sympathy, the wanting to be the center of everything, the oh, the poor you, or the oh, and these parents aren't going to get that. But if they can, by proxy, if they put their child into that position, then the parents, by transitioning their 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, get all the attention of like, oh, what a wonderful parent you are. Your child is so lucky, this gender confusion. And then they're getting all that attention without even having to carve themselves up. They're carving their kids up. It's the attention seeking, selfie, me centered generation. Of course, we all know that the worship of the self is,
It kind of leads to a dead end.
it's Satanism. It's another
Yeah,
definition.
yeah,
Another
yeah,
way to think of
yeah.
Satanism.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I
So,
mean, the
yes,
end result is very bad, for sure.
right. So we have removed God from our society. We have removed God from our schools. And what is being pushed now is self-love, the me first, the selfie, and that has obviously done no favors for our country. But that's getting a little bit
No,
off topic.
I understand. No, but it's important. It's important. They've replaced traditional spirituality, which includes ethics. The golden rule, right? That's a good rule. What's wrong with the golden rule? What's wrong with that? I mean, there's many different flavors of religion, and they all have different variations, but there's certain fundamental things, and one of them is the golden rule, where you think about the other person and you don't do something that would be bad to them. and instead of that, we now have this very bizarre constellation of ideological positions that strike me as the degrading of human beings. They're destructive of human beings. And as you pointed out very earlier, they're couched in this wonderful language. I mean, everything sounds so beautiful and so progressive and so kind and thoughtful. The Nazis were very good at that. The communists are very good at that. Some corporations are very good at that when they're selling financial products to their clients. The distortion of language is a big deal. I just want to say one last thing about this Munchausen's by proxy syndrome. It also manifests in, you have a child and you want attention. And there are people that are so sick, they literally do this. They poison or injure their children so they can bring them to the doctor to create drama that they are a center of. So it's a mental disorder. And, I don't want to disparage my opponents, my other side, by calling them mentally deranged, but some of them do give the appearance of people that are clinically deranged. Like they can't have a normal argument. They can't have a, I don't expect anybody to agree with me about anything, right? I don't expect even that I'm necessarily right. I feel that every conversation, we're trying to find, okay, what's the truth here? What's the best thing here? And when it comes to children, the question should be, all right, what is the best thing for the children? Let's find out what that is. You think this, you think that, but let's talk about it rationally. And the other side, and they clearly have made themselves into the other side, don't allow rationality. So you've made it. So you've made a really good shed some really light on this. People with conservative values, traditional values, family-oriented values, children first values, kind of we're asleep at the wheel, and people with this new religion, because it is a religion, said, hey, we'll take over the school board, we'll take over the local county executive, we'll take over this, we'll take over that. And life happens at the local level. It doesn't
They've
happen.
been at it for a long time. Like if you trace back, in a history of Marxism, when did Marxism really come in force for the United States? Well, you can date it back to the 30s with the Frankfurt School. They're the creators of critical theory, because the whole bourgeoisie proletariat does not really work in America with a strong middle class and the idea that you can make your own way. So, Marxism continually has failed through history. They never seem to give up. They just try to find a new way to implement it. And so when World War II kicked off, the Frankfurt School came here seeking refuge. Where did they go? Columbia University, and which is where one of our largest teachers' colleges is. And they set up the Frankfurt School, which was a Marxist school. And one of those, you had Horkheimer, a bunch of the names are escaping me. It's in my presentation though.
Yeah. Okay. German
but
guy.
It was Herbert Marcuse was part of it, who helped found the CIA, by the way.
Yeah.
But, he was also a big stirrer of the pot in the 60s for the attempted overt revolution in the 1960s. Well, that didn't work in America. So then he wrote an essay, a booklet, advising Marxist activists, okay, overt revolution does not work. Go into the universities, go into the corporations, be a productive part, but insert your ideology at every possible venture. And that was written in the late 60s, early 70s. And that's been successful. They've been at it for a very long time. And then if you cross that over into politics, run for your school board, run for your city council, for your mayor, and then you have these cities that are just off the deep end, like look at San Francisco. There's just it's completely devoid of logic and humanity.
Yeah.
And even in Tennessee, we're not safe. We have plenty of local officials, our school board included, that ascribe to these ideologies, and that does not represent the people, but they are the ones that are just so doggedly into this, that pushing this agenda forward, that they will run for these seats and push it as much as they can. So, conservatives, we've been sleepy. We've been assuming everything is fine. This is America. It's always going to be great. But, Ronald Reagan tried very hard, as many presidents did, to say that, the loss of freedom is but one generation away. If you get too sleepy, you will lose it. And now it's time for Americans to be called, for the conservatives and the traditionalists to be called back into service, like a sense of service to the country. Ask not what your country can do for you. It's time to do something for the country.
Right.
It's time to do the hard things and run for office and work to take it back, or to connect with your local elected officials and stay on the issues and stay engaged and work to take it back. Because when you're asleep, things happen all the time in the night, right? So it's time to wake up and be called to service.